Jimmy Shin. Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
Good to be here, Sage.
Thanks. So, I guess we're going to talk about some hot topics today and then a little bit about yourself. Where would you like to start? I mean, there's lots of different topics in the news. Is there anything of interest to you right now?
Not really. I try to stay out of the news. That way,
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of depressing these days.
Right. Well, I am trying to focus on more positive things, and I was reading somewhere how in the UK they just passed like a 4-day work week. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think people need to work the whole 5 days a week, 40, 5 days a week, 40 hours?
Actually, I'm all for that. I actually do that now. I actually work about 20 hours a week, maybe even 3 days a week. One book by Tim Ferriss kind of changed my life a long time ago.
I've read it, but please
yeah,
go
yeah, yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's like the 4 hour work week or something like that.
Right.
And basically, it says that it's not, how much you work, but the high leverage activities that you do during the hours that you do work. And so I've been trying to get it down to 4 ever since I read that book. So I think it's a great idea. I think burnout and stress is a huge issue, especially in the Western countries. And I think a lot of other countries might follow suit.
Yeah, I agree. They were saying how that you or that people in general, sorry, I'm just getting a text from the station just to let you know, not being rude. They were saying how that people fit their productivity into the amount of time they have. So let's say if I gave you 40 hours a week to do something, it would take you 40 hours a week to do it. Like you wouldn't try to get it done in 20. So I thought that was interesting as well. And I read that you were on the path to be a lawyer, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I was on the
So,
path to being a lawyer when I was young. My dad had a vision board on the wall. It said, Jimmy S., attorney at law. So he always sort of brainwashed me into thinking that I wanted to be a lawyer. And actually, I ended up going to law school, but I was very depressed because it really wasn't my path. And so I was partying and, trying to do other things to escape. And I ended up getting busted for selling weed while I was going to law school. And yeah, they don't look too fondly at that over at the Bar Association. So they wouldn't let me sit for the bar. And what ended up happening is during that probation time, I ended up finding stand up.
okay.
And basically, I never looked back. And the worst thing that happened to me ended up being the best thing that happened to me because I found my passion and I found what makes me, happy.
Did you have any before law school, did you try comedy at all? Was it even something in your brain?
I would always admire people, but I never really had the balls to do it. But after losing everything, by, disappointing my parents and having a felony on my record while I was in law school and not being able to sit for the bar, I figured I had nothing to lose, Sage.
Right. Well, actually, now that the law has changed, have they reversed your
Oh
charge?
yeah, I got this is 15 years ago. So I
Okay.
got it expunged many years ago with
Okay.
successful probation. So it's not an issue. I actually probably could be a lawyer now, but I don't want to be.
Right. You found your passion. What is it about comedy that you love? What makes you want to do it?
It makes other people happy and it's just immediate gratification. Somewhat of a thrill seeker. And so that's why, did drugs. That's why I drank. That's why I did certain things that I did. And now I'm able to do it, find my thrill through a more positive way, which is stand up.
Right. Well, you do get an adrenaline rush when you go up on stage. I've been an actor and stuff, and especially when you're on stage versus like doing film. When you're on stage, like the show must go on. There's I remember how a cockroach went across the stage in one of my plays, and you're like, it was very small theater, so you had to recognize it. You couldn't just ignore that this cockroach is like, waltzing across the stage. So I'm sure, I think it's maybe the adrenaline rush that we all love. Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, no, it's the adrenaline rush. It's the whole thing. I like writing jokes. I like seeing if it will work. I love doing a new bit and not knowing whether or not it's going to work, and then trying it out in a brand new crowd. And another thing I love about it is the novelty of stand-up. No matter how long you've been doing it, every new room you do, it's a new, crowd. It's a new person. It's a new personality.
Right. Have you been into crowds where the energy was just like a wall, and no one's laughing, no one's appreciating anything you're doing? I mean, how do you get through that?
Oh yeah, but I had a lot of experience because my parents never appreciated anything I was doing. And so I just keep going even if I don't hear any approval.
Yeah. If no one's laughing, you just keep on going.
And that's actually what open mics teach you to do, right? Everyone in there is working on their own stuff. They're not paying attention. So what it teaches you to do is not hear a response, not hear laughter, but not panic, and still go through your material. And so open mics is a good training ground for any, up and coming comedian or wannabe comedian.
Could you sort of explain that for people that might not be familiar with open mic night? Just explain a little bit how that is.
Yeah, open mic night is the night that we all started off doing stand-up at, right? You're not ready for the big leagues. You're not ready for a real show, but you might want to go tell some jokes in front of a bunch of strangers. And so if you look on Comedy Bureau, it has the listings of all the open mics, across the country. So whether you're in Washington State or Oregon or California, you can find an open mic in your area.
Okay. So you go and you just perform the material. How long does it take you to write material, and where do you get, your inspiration from for that?
Well, I can get inspiration anywhere, anytime. And so I always take notes on my phone, and I write down the premise. Let's say I'm just driving down the street and I think something is funny, right?
Like a billboard in LA.
Yeah. The other day I was down on, exactly. A billboard, anything.
Right.
The other day I was down in Hollywood Boulevard. There was a lot of Chinese people there. And so I thought, I wonder if they buy a bunch of Hollywood stuff. Like, I was at Hollywood or, LA t-shirts, and get mad when they take it home and find out it was all made in China.
Okay. It's like you could have just bought it there.
It's just the thought you have, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's a good premise because it's funny. It makes people laugh.
Yeah, I laughed.
And then,
it worked.
And then you go develop it, right, into a bit, and then you go try it at an open mic, maybe a few times. You run it, and then you work it out, as they say.
And so then you would add it into your overall show, I've noticed how some comedians sort of, they start with something and then they sort of loop back to that. Is that how you work? Or
I think everybody's process is a little different. My process is sort of like a conveyor belt of jokes, where my, the best stuff is always on the set, and then as other stuff that's sort of on the back burner get developed and get good and worked out, then they become part of my set. And so it's constantly becoming new because it's like a conveyor belt of jokes.
Sorry, I had a question somewhere during what you were saying and then it escaped me, but
it's all right. If you think of it, we can still work it out.
We'll segue to, how about your 1 hour comedy special? How did that come about?
My 1 hour comedy special is on Amazon Prime. It's entitled Walk of Shame, spelled WOK. And honestly, it just started off as, I have had an hour of material, and no network or Netflix wasn't knocking on my door. So I didn't want to wait
for
for it
that.
to happen. And so I self-produced it. I raised the
Oh,
money.
wow.
I helped direct it. I did the whole thing. And yeah, I ended up raising the money and producing a pretty high quality special that put me on the map as a headliner. And now as a result, I'm touring the country on the Walk of Shame tour. And yeah, next month I'll be in Texas. I was just in Seattle. You know, I was just in Irvine. So it's been a very good example of just making it happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And how, I mean, especially nowadays, I know most comedians and actors, you know, we have those resources to do that. How long did it take you to do your comedy special? Like from the beginning thought of, oh, maybe I should do this to the end, like how much of a production timeline was that?
It took a year, the production timeline, and it started with just making a commitment by putting a down payment down at the Roxy Theater where we filmed it, you know, the legendary Roxy
Yes,
on Sunset. And I always loved that theater. And I thought, you know what, that'd be an amazing place to
it
shoot
is.
my
It's an
special.
amazing space. Yes.
And so I ended up just putting, I think it was like $3,000 down. And if I didn't do the special, I would lose that $3,000. And back then I was a lot more broke. So I didn't want to lose that $3,000, Sage.
Definitely
So,
not.
you know, I
Definitely
remember
not.
going through a lot of obstacles and, you know, financing falling through and, you know, but it ended up happening. You know, I sort of jumped and the net appeared.
And when you say the net appeared, you mean like people came into your life at the right moments to help you? And do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of serendipity. One
Mm,
of my financiers was going to do it, and then he just kind of came on some hard times with his money, and so he backed out of being able to help out. And
okay.
at that time, a friend of mine just picked me up and, do you want to go to Korean barbecue? And we went to Korean barbecue, and he's in the weed business up in Seattle, which is also legal up there.
Right, right.
And yeah, I was just kind of bummed and depressed. And he's like, "What are you depressed about?" And I said, "Hey, my, you know, financing fell through for this special, and I put down this money, and I really want to do it." And he
Mm.
said, "I'll finance you. I'll sponsor you."
Oh,
And I
wow.
just couldn't believe how serendipitous it was. You know, just
Right,
at that right time. And you know, I really believe the universe meant for this to happen because it
right,
wouldn't have happened otherwise, right?
right. Do you believe in that? Like um, that the universe guides you or things happen to you for like you're sort of an example of that, of how bad things happen, but good things happen from that. So,
Yeah, I believe we're co-creators with the universe,
mm,
meaning you can't just sit there waiting for someone to knock on your door and say, "I'm going to finance your special." You know,
right,
you have to go out there and look for financiers. But at the same time, sometimes it happens from the least likely place that you didn't expect. You know, all the
right,
places that you knock on say no, but then the universe brings you something that you didn't even expect. And
right.
and then that one says yes. And
But
so
just because you're putting that
I'm
energy
putting
out
that energy
there,
out there.
right, right.
Yes. So I'm co-creating with the universe. I'm not waiting. I'm taking action, but at the same time, I'm staying open-minded,
Mm.
open for opportunities to come that I wouldn't expect
From all different types of places.
from all different types of places. I
Back to,
welcome it all, Sage.
so the weeds still sort of came back. Yeah, you have a through line there with
Yeah, with weed. Yeah, I always say I can't smoke weed anymore because I don't want to be the Asian guy coughing outside during COVID.
right, right. I remember. I have been to your show, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
one of
remember that.
right,
Yeah, that was
right.
an example of a tough crowd.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sage, for all you listeners, it was at a show that was an outdoor show, and those
Mm,
can be very interesting because, you know, it's hard to sort of start the laughs because you're outside and the laughs just sort of go out into
dissipate.
the universe, right? And so, yeah, no, it was a tough crowd, but again, you know, you just keep going, and I look at the people that were paying attention and were laughing.
Yeah, well, plus that space was difficult for that reason, and also that it was, people were all spread out. It wasn't just in one area where everyone was there to see the show, and there was like other activities sort of going on. So I imagine that would have been a hard stage to do. Do you ever get stage fright? Like, do you get nervous?
I still get a little bit of a nervous energy.
Mm.
And I love that. It kind of fuels you, and it gives you that energy that you need to do peak performance.
Okay.
But as far as debilitating nervousness like I used to have, where
Oh, you had that? Like you couldn't even get up there?
Oh yeah, no, I also teach comedy, and I've literally had to push students out into the audience for their first or not in the audience, onto the stage for their first show.
Right.
Because they were just so nervous. I've seen people cry. I blacked out my first time where I just didn't even remember what I said.
Wow.
I just remember the feeling that I got from it. And so, yeah, no, there's definitely panic and nervousness going on.
How did you overcome that? Was there a certain technique?
I always just say I just beat it out of myself, meaning I just kept getting up until I got desensitized and I was no longer nervous.
Do you think the confidence of doing something over and over again sort of factors into that?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I'm sure you've done this radio show for a while and you don't get as nervous as you used to.
Yeah, it depends. Yes, it depends. Well, one of my teachers was always, talking about preparation and like your homework. So I just have to make sure, like for me, doing that preparation and that homework, then I feel more confident, But if
that's what I tell my students is the more prepared you are, the less nervous you're going to be.
Right.
And you also leave room for a little bit of improv. If you know your stuff, you can veer off of it and come back.
Because it so well, like it's in your brain, like you can, it's in your brain. It's never leaving.
Yeah.
So, there's certain.
I would say if you're not so sick of your own material by the time that you're doing a show, you haven't practiced enough.
Right. Like if you, or for me, I find it funny. You'll be out and about and talking to other people, and some people might just say a little line or something that reminds you of something that you've done, and then you start laughing, and then everyone thinks you're weird because you're like, or you add to it, and then they have no idea what you're talking about, but you're like, okay. So, how important is because you were a lawyer and you weren't happy and then you found comedy, how important is it to, obviously you changed your life path. Was that like very important to you? Like you just needed to find your happiness? What would have happened if the weed incident didn't happen?
Well, it's hard to say.
Yeah, obviously.
But I think that things do happen for a reason. And, there's many alternatives, courses that could have happened or things that could have happened, but this is what happened and you make the best of it. Right. And while you're making the best of it, you find your path. For me, I believe that happened because the universe sort of took me off the path because I was very unhappy. And initially I kind of knew that it wasn't my path, but I needed something like this to take me off those rails because I was so invested in it. And so was my parents. They had put a lot of money and wanted me to be a lawyer. And they were telling everybody I'm going to be a lawyer. And it was a very hard conversation. But recently I did experience a miracle. And
what was that?
Basically, I was performing at my hometown of Tacoma, Washington. And my parents had never seen me live. And my dad was my worst sort of
critic
thorn in my side when I decided to move to LA. So he would go, when you move home, he'd call me every day, like, when you gonna move home? You're never gonna make it. Asian man become comedian in Hollywood, right? Just every day calling me, and it was annoying. And so with all that history of, him sort of verbally abusing me and not believing in me, I didn't know if I wanted to invite him over to the show. So, but right around that time, a friend of mine's mom had died.
Mm.
She said she would give anything to hear her mom nag at her one more time.
Yes, it
And
puts it
so
into
it just,
context.
kind of struck me a bit. And,
Right.
I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want my parents to pass away without
Mm.
them seeing what I do and
Oh,
seeing
yeah,
who I
that's
really
true.
am. Right.
Right, right.
And so I decided to invite them to the show, and they brought 10 of their friends. Half
Mm.
of them didn't even speak English. And during my set, they started filming me, or my dad
Oh,
started
wow.
filming me. And the security said, "Hey, you can't film here." But he kept filming me because
They
my
don't
dad,
speak English.
well, yeah,
Sorry.
he acts like he doesn't speak English when it's convenient, right? And he's stubborn and he does whatever he wants, kind of like I do. And but what I realized when he kept filming is that he was that proud of me.
Aw, that's so
He was that
sweet.
proud of me. And recently he figured out Facebook, and he finally, figured out how to post on my wall. And now he still
Oh, God.
posts on my wall as like my biggest supporter. "You are number one comedian in the world. Very handsome man." Right. And I delete it because it's kind of embarrassing because he posts the same thing every
Right,
time.
right.
But I thumbs up it first. So
Right,
he
right.
gets that notification because he hasn't figured out how to get on my profile yet.
Well, hey, your parents should be your biggest fan, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
So, speaking of fans, is there a shout out you would like to? I mean, a shout out's not really about fans, but it's about, giving appreciation and thanks to people who have stepped in and maybe pushed you when you were ready to leave LA, or stepped in when you needed an executive producer. Do you have anyone in mind?
Yeah, I wanted to
Or a
give a
couple
shout out
people?
to Q Sand Crane. He stepped up. That's my friend
Mm,
that stepped up and sponsored my special.
mm.
Gary Robinson, who's one of my co-producers, who also, donated his time and edited the video and helped
Oh,
with the
okay.
production
Yes.
and made it all possible. And then, my girlfriend, because if I didn't say my girlfriend, she probably will watch this and never talk to me for a while. So
Exactly.
for sticking with me through the pandemic,
Okay, that's
and that's a that you deserve a medal for that one.
definitely, definitely. Did you find yourself writing a lot, or how did you deal with the pandemic?
I did write a lot. I started a
Mm,
book that I always wanted to start that I never had time to do. I'm about
mm.
100 pages into my book about my life.
Okay,
And yeah, and then also wrote a lot of jokes, probably developed another 30 minutes of material. So
okay,
look out for Walk of Shame too.
okay, awesome. Can't wait
Yeah.
for it. Can't wait. What do you what do you like about the business the most, and what is also maybe one of the biggest struggles of being a comedian that you have?
What I love about stand up is that you don't have to work very many hours. No,
Hence why we
I
like
love
Tim
everything.
Ferriss's book.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to work very many hours, and I just love it. I love every part of it. It makes people happy, and
Mm,
I've never felt bad about doing a show. You know what I mean, and
right, right.
making people happy. You always get positive responses from people. "Oh man, you made me laugh. I was
Mm,
having a hard day today, and you made me laugh. Thank you so much." So it's
mm,
just it's just always positive.
mm.
And just the great people that you meet that are also fellow comedians, fellow kindred spirits, if you
Right.
will. And it's just nice to just be in a community that's so supportive
Mm,
and so much fun.
cool. And what's one of your biggest struggles that you've overcome?
I think the biggest struggle with comedy in general, or pursuing something in the arts,
Mm, yeah,
is just how long it takes for you to start making a living.
right.
A lot of people don't make it because it takes a long time to become a master of your craft and
Yes.
to command a living. And even then, you might not make a living. There's a
Right,
lot of other factors. There's a lot of luck. There's a
right.
lot of being at the right place at the right time. There's a lot of connections. Who do you know? Are you a good
Yes, definitely.
business person? Right.
Right.
Like I always kind of had an advantage because I had a law background.
Mm,
Thank you, Dad, for that. Right. putting the, vision board up there, Jimmy S, attorney at law. Now I, feel like, I got a good grasp of what I
How
can
do
get away
you,
with, what I can't.
right. So how do you feel? So how is having that background as a lawyer helpful to you?
Well, just in negotiations and
Mm,
just knowing, legalese and how to speak in a way that people know that you know what you're talking about, and being able to command a room, and you write up a contract if you need to. You don't have to hire any lawyers. A
right.
lot of,
Hey, you can save some money
yeah,
that way.
save a lot of money. You haven't had to hire a lawyer yet.
That's commendable, especially
But
here
there's
in
still
LA.
time, Sage. So if you say the wrong thing.
Karate chop. Sorry.
Yeah, that was racist, Sage. Why does it have to be a karate chop?
Because that's what people do. I so didn't mean that. Okay, I'm gonna get canceled now.
That was perfect timing for that too.
Oh my God.
Well,
Okay.
maybe the cancel culture is a good thing to talk about, huh?
Okay, yeah, we have a few minutes left. Go for it. You go first.
Yeah. No, I don't think jokes are anything to get all, upset about. People are just joking. And if you don't want to hear somebody, then leave the comedy
Right,
club.
exactly.
If you
Well, I
don't want
think,
to
yeah, go
watch
ahead.
somebody on TV, don't watch them. If you don't want to watch them on Netflix, don't watch them. But I don't think everyone needs to be canceled, for that. I think there's a perfect system already in place.
Right. Well, yeah, it's called what you watch and what you don't watch. That's how you're influencing decisions.
Yeah,
And
and
I
if enough people don't watch it, then it will get canceled, right?
exactly,
That's just how it
exactly.
works.
I don't think I think well, I think comedians are there to comment on society. That is their job. For me, comedians are there to poke fun at things and to make you maybe think of things you wouldn't have thought on your own, and to press those little buttons. And it's exactly like you said, if you don't like the person, you won't watch them. Like, I'm sure not everyone likes Howard Stern, so they don't watch him. I mean, he still has a lot of people that are watching him, but you know, everyone has a different sense of what's funny or what's important to them. And totally agree with the cancel culture. I just, I don't know, it's very disappointing to me that, especially with comedians. Now, with politicians, that might be a little different, but in what they say or don't say. But I think comedians should have free reign. That's what
Yeah.
that is your job.
Yeah. Another thing that happens a lot is like somebody, even another comedian, will get offended by something that someone else said. And
Right.
it's like, I'm not the comedy police. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go talk to this person. It's their right to say it, and if I don't like it or agree with it, I don't have to book them on my next show.
Right. But cancel culture, yes. I mean, it just depends on the context of it, though. But as a for in the
Yeah,
comedy world, yeah,
obviously there's
yeah,
certain things you don't say anymore, right? Like the
right.
N word, or the, you know what I'm saying, or the C word, or the,
Oh my God! But I have been called that. You need
yeah,
to
me
send a
too,
memo.
me too.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Jimmy. I think we're almost out of time. Was there anything you would like to or like to say? Let people know where you're performing next.
Yeah, my next show is this Friday at the Roosevelt Hotel Theater, the 29th,
Mhm.
with Jamie Kennedy, Eric Griffin from Workaholics. Also, if you want to come out stage, let me know. I'll get you a pair of free tickets.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It's a
and
great
then I have
venue.
Eliza Schlesinger as well, who's a
Oh
big
wow.
comedian. Yeah,
Yes,
right now.
I love her movie. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
yeah. She's got a new movie out, or not too new, but
yeah,
few months.
yeah.
And yeah, she's on August 5th at the Hotel Roosevelt as well.
It's a great venue for anyone that wants to go see it. It's at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, and it's like a beautiful theater with like
Yeah,
drapes.
red velvet. I just love
Very
the old
posh.
Hollywood feel of it,
Yes, definitely, definitely. Well, thanks for joining me today, and hopefully I'll see you on Friday at your show. And
Sounds
thanks
good.
everyone for joining us on Shout Out with Sage on Streaminn Hub Radio. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Sage.
Thanks. Hi, Dawn. So
Hi,
my next guest is Dawn Caverhill. How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Very good. Well, I want to give people a little background. You're a creative soul and a real estate mogul, and you started. Well, here, why don't I let you start? Where did you begin? Tell us your beginnings.
Well, it was right when man discovered fire. It was a long, long time ago. I
I
was
don't think it was that long,
well,
but
I was 15.
you were 15,
Yeah,
correct? Right.
went into a studio and walked out with Louie Louie.
Okay. As in the you sing, I can't sing. Yeah,
Da 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 da
there
da.
we go.
That's
Just
right.
for people who aren't, just for people who maybe aren't familiar with the song, I wanted to give them some context. So yes, great.
Why do it again if you want?
Go for it.
Da 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 ba da da Louie. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Okay.
Okay. And how did you end up in the studio? Like you were 15 years old. How did all that happen?
I was playing with a band at a teen nightclub, and it was owned by a DJ. And in those days, a DJ could have his own top 30 list,
Mm,
not like now with algorithms. And so he said, if you guys could be said you're recording artists, I'd get more people coming.
okay.
So he said, we're going to record a record. And now I could say the Kingsmen recording artists. That's how. It was just to promote people coming to the teen nightclub. That was
Okay.
it. Not very dramatic.
Okay.
Then what
And,
happened? He made it on his own radio show in the top 30. And then what happened is somebody in back of the East Coast was doing a program called The Worst Records Ever Made.
okay. The worst.
The worst. Could I
Okay.
make this up? It was the worst records. And so they played it back east.
Mm,
And a DJ in Boston found it,
mm.
shut his control room door, and played it over and over and over.
Okay.
That's how.
Were you always into music? Like, how did you, like at 15, that's pretty young. Were you always like around those type of people and that type of,
No, not at all. I was 7, and I'm walking up the street, and I heard this music coming through somebody's screen door,
mm,
and I walk right into the house, and an older black lady playing boogie woogie on the piano. And
okay,
I said, I want to do that.
cool.
I love.
And then what happened?
She taught me how to play boogie woogie.
Okay, so that's where you first started piano.
Yep. Just
Okay.
that's sort of because I loved rhythm, and she was cooking. It was good.
Okay. So you started out with the Kings, sorry, the
Kingsman. Yeah.
Kingsmen. And then, I mean, you've been involved with Iggy Pop and Elektra Records. You've done a lot of things. How did all those other moments happen for you?
Well, um, when I was 15, when I recorded Louie Louie, by the time I was 16, it was the number one record. Everybody in the band was older than me. And so
Okay.
my folks said I had to finish high school.
Mm. Your
They
parents
went
said,
off without my parents, sorry. And they went off with touring.
mm,
And I couldn't leave the music, so I formed a new band
mm.
in high school. It was called Don and the Good Times.
Okay.
And we ended up getting asked to be on a Dick Clark television show called Where the Action Is. And
Okay.
so we went and became regulars on there. I think I was 18 or 18 and a half, something like that. And a protege of Phil Spector, Jack Nietzsche, said he wanted to record us. So we made a record. It ended up top 20 called I Could Be So Good to You. Okay. Then what I do next? Oh, I formed my group, though. The Good Times was a TD Bop group. And right
Okay.
at the same time, out came Sergeant Pepper and Jefferson Airplane. And we were so last week.
Okay.
I said, okay, you want to hear progressive music? Here's what I've been sitting on. So I had a group called Touch, and we recorded this album that was way ahead of its time. And I mean that sincerely, because that's what people said. And it became the, how do I say this? Yes, Pink Floyd, Genesis, and a few others said it was their influence. And
Okay.
it was the beginning of progressive rock. If you look up in Facebook and you see Touch, it'll say the first progressive rock album.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and how did all of that factor into where you ended up now? You have a new record that's coming out. So is it the same as those previous? Like, do you take a little bit from other albums and do they influence you, or do you totally start something anew?
Honestly, as the muse visits and talks to you, okay, it's just where it's at that moment you're looking for something, and then you go, that's a hook, and then from there you build, right? I love music, and I don't know, you'll tell me when you hear it if it sounds like a dupe or it sounds fresh. I think it's new, but I can't forget my past. I mean, I can't eliminate it. I feel it because I love the roots of music.
Right. And what are the roots of music to you? Like what
Classical, Chopin, Debussy, Louis Armstrong, ballads from the 40s and 30s, Chuck Berry. God,
okay. A lot of
everything that where the speakers spit fire.
speakers
When
spit
it's
fire.
coming out. When you can't, if I hear something I like in a department store, you'll see me under the speaker in the ceiling listening.
Okay. That's good to know. I read, I was doing research and I read that when you were doing Touch, your band Touch, when you were doing your album, that you had Mick Jagger and Jimi Hendrix come in to visit you at Sunset Sound Studios. So, everyone likes a little bit of nostalgia. So what was that like? What was Sunset Sound like at that time when you were recording?
It was we were I was just excited to do my compositions because they were all new, and we're recording, and I look up, I'm at the piano in the middle of a take, and I see Jimi Hendrix in the booth, standing there listening. I said, gee, that's cool. And then later, a couple of days later, Mick Jagger came, and there'd been a buzz about the new album, right? And I didn't realize it was all over everywhere. And Jagger had showed up with the rough tapes of Beggar's Banquet, and he was looking for a place to mix it and make it the final album. And he heard the music, and then he heard our engineer, who was our producer, and so my session stopped. He took it over and mixed Beggar's Banquet there.
Oh, wow.
So I was just happy that nobody said, what is that awful sound?
Well, that wouldn't be very good if they thought you were awful.
It put a chill on it,
What other stories do you have of, during producing or recording a record where something outrageous happened? I'm sure you have some outrageous stories that we could hear.
Would you like to hear about Louie Louie?
Whichever one pops into your head. So
okay, well, we go to the studio. Remember, the DJ wanted to record us so he could say Kingsman recording stars, right?
Mhm.
So the idea was we'll do Louie Louie because in the Northwest in those days, Louie Louie was already popular by
Mm.
another band. It was
Okay.
a national anthem up there, but no one else in the country knew. So we go to the studio with $50. It's one of these places where they would record advertising jingles like buy the Oldsmobile or get your dry cleaning done here. So we go in, we set up, we do our first take, and we hear the singer, and we all blanched. It was just awful. So the DJ says, people don't care much about the words. They just like the rhythm. Turn the vocal down, he says to the engineer. The engineer hates rock and roll and says, Mister, you see where that dial is? That's where it's been. That's where it's always going to stay. So we're going, gee, the $50 is running out. We go back in the studio. We say, Jack, step back from the mic. After about 3 takes, he kept crowding it. In desperation, we raise it up in the air so he can't reach it. And that's how the sound came about. It made it sound like a live recording.
Okay.
And that is the genius of the record, just an accident.
Well, there's lots of accidents. What accidents happened or other serendipitous moments for you to be getting into real estate? Because you're huge in real estate.
Well,
so you're a creative soul, you're a musician, and I mean, I was reading, or actually I wasn't reading, I saw on HGTV Homes has one of your homes. It's a prolific residence in Beverly Hills. It's beautiful. So
thank you.
Let us tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. I had a house there. It was small, and I was looking. I was married at the time, and my wife did not have a closet.
Oh, well, yeah, that you're going to get divorced because we need closet space.
I was already served with the papers.
I need a closet for shoes, a closet for my clothes, a closet for my hats. Yeah.
You nailed it exactly. Okay. Yes. Actually, she was a lovely woman. She passed away because of something, but I love doing it. Anyway, I see something I like in a magazine, and I call the architect.
Okay.
And he actually comes to visit, and I said, can you do something for me? Not there, just somewhere else. But he ended up loving the site. And so I tore the old house down and built, looking for a design for the new one, right? Well, he was a radical guy at the time. He's very well known now. Zoltan Pauly, his name is, SBFA Architects. And we were looking at floor plans, and then eventually I said, yeah, but what's it look like from the street? He was scared, as you could imagine, to actually show me. He was so used to being turned down. So he had all these books and drawings and everything, but then there was this little 3.5-inch sketch on a pad.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even a pad. I saw in the video. It's on a napkin. It's a classic LA story. It's like, they signed it on a napkin. I mean, it showed his first rendering of the house, and it's on this little like paper napkin.
And the windows he kept it out like this with the speakers. He was afraid to even pull it out. He went like this. And I saw it, and I was a genius. I was brilliant. You know what I did? I said yes.
You said yes.
I said yes. The minute I saw it, I said, you nailed it. Okay. And that was, well, it's a wide lot, about 140 feet. And I thought he'd do a compound going down the hill. Instead, he ran it all along the street. And, well, here's the thing. The worst thing that ever happened if you spend good money on a house, I'm making numbers up. But say you spent $3 million, right? And then your friend comes by afterwards and goes, my God, this must have cost you $1 million. Oh, that's death, right? It better look like the money. So I thought it looked right.
It looked like the money. Yeah,
It looked
it
like
does.
the money. And so we built it. And of course, like everything else, twice as much.
It's twice as much, right? But it's also been featured in, again, I was reading how it was featured in The Weeknd's Starboy video and in a bunch of other commercials. So it's
Yes.
a very amazing house. How did you guys come up with the way the windows, because it's not normal windows, they're on a slant and they're thin, and how did you come up all with that?
Okay, I'll have to say it. Okay, the house across the street was god awful, so he didn't want to be able to see it. Could I make
Okay.
this up? Okay, so the angles looked out to the ocean, and it completely blocked the house across the street.
Well, ocean or ugly house, you know. I mean,
yeah. Gee, I'm so confused.
yeah, definitely.
That's how it was. That was literally how it started. But that was the beauty of creativity: finding a limitation or an obstacle that turns out to be a benefit. And
Right.
that happens all the time in design and music and everything. If you don't get upset by, gee, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, but that limitation can sometimes make you more creative.
Right. And how do you see, like, you're in music, you're in real estate, how do those two things, how are they similar, and then how are they different? How are they similar? I guess we'll start
Well,
with
they're similar in that the right architect or the right landscape guy is no different than the right bass player or the right drummer. It's putting a creative team together.
Mm.
So to me, it's the creativity is what would the word be? There's no separation. A creative project is a creative project.
Right. And do you
Look
feel,
I'm
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. Do you feel that the energy, like, you know, obviously some people want to have energy where everyone gets along. Some people want more of a, I don't want to say argumentative, but maybe more like, you know, or people test you more. Which one do you think is better, or, you know, different ones are needed at different times? Sorry, did I stump you there?
No, it's that. Yeah, I'll answer it like this. Somebody has to have an overview,
Mm,
right? And
right.
then you can make the right decisions as that whoever idea was, did it come up and did it work in the big picture, right? So you can tell I'm bashful, all right? But what I did is I'm not afraid of saying no, but a lot of times I would just say yes. If I heard
And see
something
what
that
happens.
fit the
Yeah.
overview, as long as it, in the scheme of things,
Mm.
was not like
A total variation off the path.
yeah, and it lost the integrity and sometimes exactly what it needed was something that was unexpected and thought of as being entirely different. But you know magic when you hear it, when you see it.
Okay, so let people know. So what's a secret to knowing that? Like, a lot of people in the creative industry or realm, writing, music, whatever, might not know how to tell what magic is. Like, what is magic?
You feel it. I don't know any other way. They call it flow,
Yeah.
right? I believe that we don't quite have free will. We're kind of in a river steering and trying not to hit the banks, right? But if you catch that current, you know when, like I said, the speakers are spitting fire, or when you look at something, it's not like you have to, well, here, let me tell you about this and let me tell you about that. It doesn't need an explanation.
Right. You should just know when you
It
know.
works.
It's like a knowing, I guess. Let's call
Yeah.
it a knowing.
Yeah,
Right.
it's annoying. And for that, what do you have to do but not read your own press release? and try to and not to get caught up in who you are. I'm not
Right.
saying that to you. I'm saying that to myself.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah, it's always got to, you can tell if it's fresh, if it's in the pocket, even like a rhythm. You walk into an old blues club and they're cooking, they're in the pocket. You know that. There's no discussion about this or is that 150 beats a minute or 145. They're
You just like it or you don't.
yeah, exactly. They're taking the paint off the furniture. They're so good.
Taking the paint off the furniture. Cool. And what about serendipitous moments or, opportunities that arose for you? How did those happen? And was there ever a time that maybe you missed an opportunity that you went, oh, maybe I should have done this, but then I didn't?
Okay, two questions. Yeah, one is I've had more serendipity than I can ever imagine. I started thinking about because of the title of your program,
Right.
and I realized that I was all the way back with Eve, thanking her for having an apple desire. Okay, there's so many people that helped. I could do a few, but
Right.
also I've learned one thing, and that is you can't have regrets or remorse because who you were at the time. If God
Right.
came, talked to you and said, don't do this, you would have done it. That's who you were at the time.
Right.
So I couldn't have done anything different then, but we try to walk by the light of what we know now. And so that's all I try to do there. But I've had, if you want a shout out or two, it's up.
Well, yes. Well, that's the point of the show. It's a shout out. So has anyone been pivotal in your life, or did anyone like push you when you were like, oh, I'm not going to, let's say, do a certain song, or I don't know, whatever. What was a major maybe turning point in your life?
Let's see. When I was in high school, I was in a different band because every high school in Portland, Oregon had its own band. And I started teaching them new music. And there was this other band called the Kingsmen, and they were the #1 band in Portland. And the guy that ran the Kingsmen, Lynn Easton, was an entrepreneur, and he heard about how did this new band or new guy in a band go from #9 to #2 in about 4 months. So he came over and hired me. And I didn't know any better than to leave my band in the high school and go to a different band. And that's how I got the Kingsmen, and that's how we did Louie Louie. So I thank Lynn for saying, hey, come on, join us. That was a big turning point.
And why don't we talk about your new album? I guess we should do that before we go. What's the title of your new album, and just talk about it a little bit for us?
Well, it's called Light. And there's this will be shorter than it sounds. Okay. There was a sort of a French wine bar in Beverly Hills, and they have a little music on Friday and Saturday night. Well, my wife was very good friends with the owner. His name was Jordan. And so I'd be there on a weekend. And of course, my wife would go to the people playing, that's Don. Remember Louie Louie? And I'd be going, stop, please, stop. Well, the guitar players, whose name is Balazs, said, well, come on up and play. And so I sat in, and long story short, Balazs is a great guitar player, recordist, engineer, you name it. And he ended up saying, let's do something. And so we went to his dining room where his equipment was, and we started recording. And he changed my life because he got me back into music, recording. And shout out for Balazs.
Okay. So you had obviously music was probably still a part of your life, but you just hadn't been recording or been active in the industry, you mean, before this?
That's correct. I got out a long time ago, and I ended up, I love playing. I always play.
Yeah.
and I would perform. I never did bar mitzvahs or weddings, but I did like to play.
I have worked I do events. So way back when, that's
Well, we could do something at the Catskills together.
it's okay. I don't need to do that now.
No, okay. Money's good, really.
Yeah. What's your biggest advice for someone wanting to, let's say, move to LA and get into the music industry? What would you advise?
Say no to yourself, and then if you can't not do it, do it.
Because that's the right
If you
decision.
can't talk yourself out of it, or if you can, don't do it.
Mm.
It hits you, and it hits you in deep in your intuition to do it.
Mm.
By
What
not
is,
doing it,
sorry, say that again.
by not doing it,
Okay.
and then you wake up in the morning and you cannot not do it. Then you know.
Then that's your destiny, or maybe not your destiny, but definitely something you should be pursuing. What in your life has helped you pursue your goals? Like, do you have, I'm sure you've had struggles and moments that were very difficult. Do you meditate? Do you do positive affirmations? Is there something that you do, or you just sort of go with the flow, or is there a practice that you do?
I remember that nobody can figure this out.
Mm.
Why we're here, why we're doing whatever, but we do. We wake up in the morning and we're all the same in one way. We head for what is meaningful to us.
Mm.
No one gets up in the morning and I'm going to go do something that bums me out, right? We all
Well, some people might have a job that bums them out. So,
well, what's meaningful to them is making money.
mm,
There's something meaningful about it. Otherwise, they do it. It doesn't mean it's all wonderful, but
right.
we don't pursue anything that doesn't fulfill something. And in the end, you accept it. I mean, I know one thing when people say, what's my destiny, or what's this, what's that, what you're good at. That's what the universe told you why you're here, so to speak. A lot of people
So
if I have to suffer, I have to go sit with a guru on a mountaintop. No, it ought to be relatively easy. It's what you're good at. So
okay, wait. Okay, this is really important. Please say this again. What you're
destiny is pretty much, give or take, what you're good at. If it comes relatively easy, that's what you do. That's the hint. It isn't like, oh, I haven't suffered enough. I haven't paid my dues. You'll pay your dues regardless if you're good at it. But it starts with what you're good at. That's what the universe is telling you.
okay. Wow. Thank you for saying that. That was really, yeah. Well,
Thank you for not laughing. That's good.
no, I mean, because everyone's like, oh, what am I supposed to do with my life? What am I supposed to do with my life? And you're just saying it's what you're good at.
That's a hint.
Well, yeah, go in the right direction. Like, like,
I've heard people that were talented say, well, but I haven't paid my dues. I haven't this and that. Believe me, you will.
yeah.
Right? But start with what naturally flows out of you is that you got a lock on it. That's the hint. I mean, to me, that's like a flat forehead, obvious,
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that I think that bit of advice would be very influential to them, or at least be helpful.
Oh, I didn't mean to I just meant it's obvious, but we have to accept
Yeah,
the obvious.
I understood what you said. I didn't take it as a bad thing. So, well, with that, I mean, that was a great way to end the show. We're at time, and it was a great moment of advice. So I want to thank you, Dawn, for being with us today. And yes, I hope to see you again soon. Oh, give us a little blip on your new album, just like the name again.
Sure. It's called Light, and it's by me, okay, by Don Caverhill, and it's you can download it. I believe so far on Amazon Music. You can download it on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal,
All the major
all the
platforms.
streaming platforms.
Great. Okay, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Sage. This is Shout Out with Sage on Streaminn Hub Radio. See you next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Sage.
Thanks, Don.
That was awesome, dude. Awesome.